You are now tuned in to DameSmiff.
Welcome to Musician Talks with DameSmiff. This is episode 29, and today I want to talk to you about reflecting life as an artist. But before I get started, be sure to like, share, and subscribe with anybody you know who would like to be interested in the music industry, their music career, or just wants to learn about being a creative and creating in life today. So like I said, I want to talk about reflecting life as an artist. Now, typically, most artists don't understand this concept, and that's not anybody's fault, because this is a concept that's not necessarily something you can pin down to something tangible. It's just more of an approach to art. Now, what does it mean to reflect life in your art? To reflect it would mean that you would have to have some kind of source of light, meaning in a mirror doesn't necessarily just copy images and just shows it back to whatever's looking at it. It's just literally a slab that reflects light so clear and consistent that we can see it for what it is. Like, this wall behind me isn't smooth, so the light that hits it gets bent and cut and turned and all that stuff. So when it hits, it doesn't bounce back as bright. So it just looks like it's being absorbed into the wall. I think, yeah, pretty much it is. So to be able to reflect life in artwork would mean that you would have to have some experience in life and have to have lived through a bit of it. Now, this is the part where artists get this very, very confused and mixed up, because sometimes the life you live and the life you experience isn't a life that is actually something you want to share. So when you create your art, oftentimes you only reflect the parts that you want to show and not necessarily reality as a whole. So this can be detrimental to some artists, and this can be very, very, very positive for artists. But for both artists in that situation, it's very vulnerable for you to do. Now, keep in mind that it can be something that's not personal to you as an artist. You can reflect things that you maybe want to shine a light on, or you maybe want to share political views. You may want to share somebody else's political views or shine a light on somebody else's situation and experience. But either way, this opens the artist up to be very, very vulnerable, because the main thing that artists need to understand when they do want to reflect life in their artwork is that you have to be intentional about it, and you also will be taking a brunt of the responsibility of how this will affect people. And for many people who are not creatives, and some creators who think like this, this can be something that's scary, and like I said before, vulnerable. So they will choose not to do it to try and protect maybe themselves, family members, or whatever else. But at the end of the day, if you want artwork that's going to substantiate the way people think about maybe their situation or the current times or anything that you want to put into the art to reflect what's going on around you, you have to be intentional. Now, when it comes to hip hop is a very impactful genre, because the vibrations and transparency a lot of the artists portray are very, very heavy-handed, and oftentimes it's shocking to people who don't have these experiences, which kind of gravitates people towards it because of the excitement, or maybe the bit of it's honestly just sexy to see something that you've never seen before in full 100%, performance. And I can give you an example of that. When you think about the hustler in hip hop, the hustler wasn't necessarily the person who wanted to reflect life. The hustler wanted to sell a product. Now, hip hop wasn't necessarily founded on this American ideal of trying to make it out or trying to necessarily do better in life and things like that. It was literally just to tell you stories of what's going on today in the world around you. And the break beats and the DJs and things like that were there as the backdrop for the stories and the information so that people could come together and oftentimes enjoy sharing these stories and dance and commune and things like that. But when you insert the hustler who will sell and do almost anything for $1, that hustler, when it's time for them to tell their story and to reflect, the odds of them telling you how they struggled to become who they were, or they're struggling now to maintain who they are, is very, very low because that doesn't sell products, which goes against the entire mentality of being a hustler. So now you have people who are not creatives, are not artists and things like that, doing the act of creating music in order to sell something. Now, this is where a lot of people who aren't creative get very, very confused when it comes to artwork. So they will tell you, the people who don't understand this concept of reflecting life in your artwork, they will tell you that as long as I tell you pieces of my life that are real, then it is real. But reality isn't something that you get to pick and choose what it looks like, how it moves, or how it makes you feel. So a lot of the well, I'll say the more common artists today aren't necessarily trying to show you their reality. They're just trying to show you something so that you could sell it. And that's not anybody's fault because this has become an industry commodity. So it's just a matter of people trying to capitalize on something that has an opportunity for them to, make money. Now, I want to also draw a line in the difference between making something as a commodity and making something that you intentionally want to affect people. So there's, just to keep it on the hustlers example, like we explained before, there's hustlers who are just hustling. They're doing the thing so that they can sell it to make money. But then there's other hustlers who are artists. So they sell things and they hustle. But at the end of the day, they want to inspire. Maybe they want to shine a light on something. Maybe they want to expose something. Maybe they want to invite people into something new that they've never experienced before. And so with that means that this hustler is now making intentions or taking intentions in making the music that they want or the artwork. So now there are certain hustlers where in their music, they're going to explain the pitfalls of being a hustler, the bad side, in conjunction with the great and goods and the fun side of it. And that's where you get art. We're not just talking to a guy who does a thing that he may find fun or, interesting or opportunistic. We're now looking at something where you're getting a complete full picture of who this person is, if it's not personal, of what this person does or where this person is in life. Not their life, but life for how it stands against the world. Um, to give you a quick example, I can't remember the lyric exactly or who said it, but it was along the lines of the first time the lyric was like, the first time I had gotten money, I thought I had reached the top, but then when I met my friend who made way more money, I realized that I wasn't even anywhere near the amount of money. I wish I could remember the lyric so it would sound a lot better. But essentially what this artist was trying to say is that they've been hustling for so long and so hard and so efficiently that when they finally reached what they thought was the top, there really was no top. You can keep going. And for a lot of other hustlers who may hear this, that may inspire and motivate you to either think about what you're doing as far as trying to improve upon it, or maybe do something different, or maybe that's something that you're like, it may motivate you in another sense. But For that artist to choose to put that line there wouldn't necessarily mean that they just threw that in there just to be vulnerable. You would have to actually have some intention with the line behind that, because when you choose to put lines like that in music, it shows that what you may already think may not be true. And lines like that aren't necessarily, that's not the same thing as saying like pop bottles in the club. It's very, very different, because the difference is that one is telling you something that can be done and there's a possibility to do it. You can choose to do it. And another one is saying you may not be doing the thing you want to do. You may not be getting the results you think you are getting in life. And to force you to think like that is an intentional act. Like people, not people, artists, when they create, have to be intentional if they want to reflect reality. And that was a reality for this artist, was that, man, I really thought I was doing a lot better than I really was. And to expose that was to be intentionally vulnerable for the audience. Now, there's another side to reflecting reality that a lot of artists, and especially people who aren't creatives, tend to gravitate towards, and it's the responsibility of it. Now, you take responsibility for everything you do as an artist, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But when you begin to commercialize your music, when you begin to allow your music to be consumed by everyone, then you run into the effects that happen to the people that consume your music. So if I tell somebody, go to the club, pop bottles, and things like that, and they go do it and they blow their money, it's reasonable to think that, I gave this person advice to do so and they went and did it and it didn't work out for them, and it's reasonable to think that it was my fault to put that into them. But it's also reasonable to say that it was their choice to go do it. So now it begs the question of, what, when I told them that information or that advice, what did I want them to do? What was my intention with the advice? And oftentimes people who aren't creative, especially the fans and things like that, when you don't have that responsibility in your day to day, that can feel kind of overbearing and more of a burden than it would than somebody who's saying, I'm going to make music like this so that I can get this outcome. It's very, very different mindsets and approaches. So when you are reflecting life as an artist, it's very important to understand why you're doing it and what effect you want. Not necessarily what effect do you think you can get or can control, because you're not in that kind of position, but it does behoove you to ask the question at least. Now, many artists don't need to ask the question, because like I displayed earlier, if you're a hustler and you just make music to sell something, you're not going to be intentional about being the best, let's say hip hop. You're not going to be the best lyricist, producer. You're not going to try to be the most versatile. There's no end goal in mind. You have zero intention with the art. Your intention has gone as far as to create the art to sell it. So the effects of it, the results of it, the substance within it, how it's packaged and all this stuff only goes as far as to get the thing done and to sell it. Where the most successful art worldwide, regardless of genre or time, has had an intentional value put into it from the artist. You can go from classical piano music. There was an intention to make an emotion in the music, all the way up to pop music today, where there's typically a political intention to the music, where they want you to see a certain viewpoint or maybe shine light on a certain thing. But oftentimes, and more often than not, people and artists in general, we create just to create. And so when we're not getting these types of attraction from media or the fans and things like that, it's because there is no intention behind how it will affect the people that's going to be consuming your artwork. And it's very important. It's very important to understand that as an artist, Because if you don't understand this, then you will think that what you do in your life should be uh, relatable. Or you may think on the other end, what you do in your life should not be relatable, but you don't have any intention on discerning the difference between whether it is or is not relatable. So whatever you get is just whatever you get. And that can be detrimental for an artist for many reasons. One of the reasons being in hip hop, a lot of the music in hip hop, when you think about the gangster rap era, began to become kind of uniform. And that was typically because the audiences were relating the people in the music, meaning the people who were making it, with the intention behind why they were making it. And let me explain what that means. So what that means is, if a ex-convict who has served their time decides to come out of prison and begin making music, and whatever the music is, whatever they're talking about, and that person has no intention behind the effects that their music will have on the people that will hear it. Like, a lot of people do this. They just want to make an album. And this person makes an album. When you land that music in front of somebody who has no relation to this person's reality, to this artist's reality, they can now in turn say that this person is the artwork. This person completely represents what it is they're portraying in their artwork, when that may not necessarily be true. Because as I've explained, the person who made this album was an ex-convict and did their time, but they are now making music. So now they're not the criminal that they're portraying in the music. They're simply explaining their realities. So like I said, without the intention of that, without that artist making a clear intention that I want you to hear my story and learn about my story, and to know that this is who I am today, meaning an artist, without making that concise and clear for the audience, the audience is free reign to think that you are the very person you claim you are within the song, and not the person you actually are today. And that's the big thing that confuses people in music today. Not even hip hop. People do it all the time. Like, you can take women in music. A lot of people assume that successful women in music are these boisterous, bossy, very sexy, powerful women, when sometimes that's how they feel on the inside, and they don't portray that in their real life. So then when you meet them and they're very nice and they're, very humble and things like that, it kind of is shocking to people. And in the sense of not promiscuity, but in the sense of sexiness and accessibility. Like, if a woman is in her music video dressed sexily and the music is sexually charged and things like that, but then if you were to just run into her at like a Best Buy or something like that, and she's not portraying that exact image that you expected of her, without this artist applying the intention behind the effect that they want to put out for their music, it's pretty much up to the audience to determine how they want to view this artist. And it's to nobody's fault. It's just a matter of approach. So then you can take another female artist who, let's say they're doing the exact same thing, but they take the time to say, and to put the intention behind their music to say, this is what I'm portraying, to shine light on, let's say, a side of my personality. So this may not be me. I'm multifaceted. Sometimes I'm this, sometimes I'm that, sometimes I'm emotional, sometimes I'm not emotional, sometimes I'm the superpower woman in the world, but then other times I'm not. I'm just a regular person sometimes. But without portraying that intentionally in your artwork, there is no room to even ponder about what the possibilities are. It's just, it is what it is, straight up and straight. So it's very important for artists to understand the intention behind reflecting life in your artwork. And this can be super, super, super powerful for artists, especially early on, because you can have a grasp on what actually affects people. And then if you put the science behind it, there are people that do this, for a living in terms of making sure that things are digestible for certain people and things like that. But unless you are understand how it works, making the initiative to be intentional and understanding that the effects that you have on people when you begin to be intentional is your responsibility. Reflecting life in reality becomes that much more easier to do, and you get that much better at it over time. And then you can actually say, I don't want to be so serious this time. I just want to make a fun dance track and, you know, jump around and wave my hands in the air like a psycho. You can do that because you can be in control and make that choice, compared to the artist who's doing that with no intention and then getting the results that they are getting and not liking or enjoying the results that they're getting. So that was episode 29 of Musician Talks. This was a little longer one. I'm playing with the times. I'm probably going to stick with 10 to 15 minutes, but be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and share this video with everybody who wants to be a creative, learn about the music industry, or even just wants to join the conversation. Leave a comment at the bottom on what you think it means to reflect life in your art or reflect reality in your art. And this is Musician Talks with DameSmiff, episode 29, and I'm out.